it's just kind of modeling now. We're taking equations, we're taking words and making them into equations. Isn't that exciting? Story problem.
Speaking of modeling.
Not modeling.
I was at JC Penney, alright?
Look, and do you know I feel bad for the people that watch these videos that are absent? Because I feel like they just hear you for half the time.
No, honestly, that's a really good story. I was at JC Penney, trying on my suit jacket, alright? The guy that fitted me for it gave me a business card. Said, you have pictures, look, modern male model for the kids at home. Call them? Yeah, model. Not that
You could put yourself through college with your modeling career.
Yeah, right. He was probably just some old creeper.
Maybe. Or they want you to pay like $500 to take your shots, they'll say, you pay $500 to make this portfolio, and then you'll get this job, and then you never hear back from them, and you give them $500. You gotta watch out for those scams. We're not even solving this. We're just writing a mathematical expression to describe what's here. So 4 more than 5% of a number. What do you think? Anybody want to jump out there? We don't know what the number is, so we can't come up with the answer. Like, you're not supposed to give me the answer here. Remember back in algebra when I say, like, write an expression for a number increased by 7, right? And you'd write, like, n plus 7, right? So how would I write 4 more than a number? Let's forget about the 5% for a minute. 4 plus, right? 4 more than, we're adding, right? So if it wasn't for this 5% and it just said 4 more than a number, we could say like 4 plus n, you could say 4 plus x, you can use whatever letter you want. What about the 5%? How would I write 5% of a number? Can I just write 5% in here? I think you should write it as a decimal or a fraction. Percent is out of 100, so normally we think of that as a decimal, so we write 0.05 in, or 5 over 100 if you prefer, and simplify that. 4 more than 5% of a number. Right? That's it. That's not so bad. I don't know, because when it says number, I think of n. I'd write x. If it's talking about hamburgers, I would write h. But you can use whatever letter you want. You could use L for Logan if you prefer. I wrote X on my paper if it makes you feel any better. Alright, so write an expression again. I'm not looking for an answer. I'm not even looking for an equation because they're not telling me what this equals. I just want an expression for the income after a 3% drop in the current income of dollars. There's a couple ways you could do this. A little bit. Different variations of this. We'll see. Depends on how many people are gone. Monday is senior trip day, and then Tuesday is NHS tapping, and if you're involved in that, then you're gone second period as well as third period. We're probably going to do something like the same thing Monday and Tuesday, but some people are going to be gone both days, so you're definitely going to have to make that up one way or the other. Like, you're going to have to figure that out. Then you have to make it up. Like, part of going on a field trip or participating in NHS, all those papers, Logan, say you are responsible for any missed work. That's what it says. I'm not all the other teachers. I could do new stuff both days, Logan, but I'm not. I'm saying that you'll have one assignment for both of those days. If you're gone both of those days, then you have to make it up. There's a lot of people that will be here on Monday that will be gone on Tuesday. And then there'll be some people that will be gone on Monday that will be here on Tuesday. So I can pick up the ones that were left out. There will be a few that will be gone both days. And it's your choice to participate in those things. It's your responsibility to stay caught up on the work that's missed. Don't get mad, but you just argue with me about everything. What do you think? How do I write the income after a 3% drop in my current income? How much income do I have left if I lost 3% of my income? What could we say my total? Let's just pick a number then. What's my total income? $8,000. Ooh, that's rough. If I lost 3% of that, how could I figure out what I was making? So let's just use 8,000. If 8,000 was my total income, to find out how much I was losing, Logan says we're going to multiply by 3%, which is 0.03. And does that tell me how much I make now? No, that tells me how much I lost. So then what did you say we're going to do, Logan? Subtract that from my original income. So here's my advice to you. If you get thrown off by these problems, how do I do it with a letter? Pick a number. Pick some value for it. And then just go back and change it. If I'm talking about my income, I could use I for this if you want. Or in, or whatever you want. Could I say my income to begin with was capital I? And I'm going to subtract capital I times 0.03. Could I simplify that any? Since they both have I in them? What if I said x minus 0.03x? Can you simplify that? Are those like terms? Are they the same letter to the same power? What's the number in front of this? Can you just subtract those? If I lost 3% of my income, how much income do I have left? What's 1 minus 3%? 97%, right? So some people don't even do this part. Like they just say, oh, if I lost 3% of my income, my answer is I have 97% of my income left, or 0.97x. Got to think about that, of taking it from a total amount. You start with 100%, and you're losing 3%. Hopefully you're gaining 3%. Hopefully you get a raise every year, and you get a 3% increase, and you could do it the same way. You could add 3% of your income, and then you would have 1.03. I did. I don't know. I'm not in the union. I don't make those decisions. There's a lot of teachers that aren't in the union here, which means even if the people in the union were on strike, there will probably be lots of people still here. So you'd still have to come. Just so you know. You don't have to write every word of this. Probably just the most important part. A big thing I want to point out, what I noticed as we were doing some worksheets and homework quizzes, is that a lot of you add an equal sign in places that you shouldn't add an equal sign in. If it's just an expression like on those last problems, or if it just says add f of x plus g of x, there's no equal sign in that problem. So you don't make an equal sign. Many of you just put in an equal sign. But if it says an equation has an equal sign, and you probably could solve that problem. So notice the difference between these directions and the other directions. It says write an equation and solve the problem. When we have a test on Wednesday, writing the equation is worth a lot of points. A lot of times you can use guess and check. You can find the answer to the problem, and that's okay. But when it says write an equation, I'm looking for that equation, and then we're going to solve that problem. So I want you to think about the last problem that we did as you're doing this. And again, you probably don't need all these words in here. 3.5% salary increase. After the raise, he made $36,432. So you probably need something about, like, you could shorten that up. After raise equals $36,432. And I want to know what was his salary before the raise. So what was the original salary before that 3.5% increase? So you definitely can just type some numbers on your calculator and you can probably come up with the right answer. But I want you to write an equation to represent that situation that would also get you to the right answer. So I want you to look at the last problem where we had a decrease in salary. That should help you as you're setting this up. The difference is we know what this one equals. So take a second and see if you can at least come up with the part. How could you write that you received a 3.5% salary increase? How could you take your salary and increase it by 3.5%? Look back at the one we just did where we were decreasing our salary. You just add it, right? And again, we can use X if you don't like I. But if I have my original salary and I'm increasing it by 3.5%, don't write 3.5. If write as a decimal, what would 3.5% be as a decimal? Of my salary. So I have to multiply by whatever letter I'm using for my salary. And how much did that equal when I got my 3.5%, or Mark got his 3.5% salary increase? Just like the last one, you can put these two together, right? If you're decreasing your salary, it's going to be less than what it started with. It's going to be less than that 100%. If you're increasing it, you're going to have more than what you started with. You're going to have 1.035x equals 36,432. That's what I'm looking for, the equation that matches the problem. And then from there, I hope it's a pretty easy problem to solve. You're just going to divide that over. And make sure your answer is reasonable, especially in a story problem. You should hopefully know, should my answer be bigger or smaller than my 36,432? Smaller, because I got an increase. So if for some reason you get a number bigger than this, you know that's got to be wrong. So go back and look at your equation. I got 35,200. Did you get that? You take that and divide it by 1.035. They're not that terrible problems, but you got to make sure that you're setting them up correctly. Questions about that? Definitely some questions on your homework today about salary. Hopefully it should be pretty easy. Let's do it. Let's talk about salary. When a number is added to its double and its triple, the sum is 714. Find the three numbers. Back in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, we looked at problems that would say, like, find the sum of two consecutive integers, or find the sum of two odd integers. This is the same kind of thing, only I think it's not even as bad to do. Again, I don't just want the numbers. The directions say write an equation and then solve it. So on a test, that's probably like a 4 or 5 point question, because 2 or 3 of those points are going to come from just writing the equation correctly, and then the rest are going to be from solving it. Again, you can pick whatever letter you want. I'm probably going to pick N because I'm talking about a number. A number is added to its double and its triple. The sum is 714. Anybody want to volunteer what they think the equation would be there? How would you write double a number? How would you write triple a number? If we're going to add all those together, a number is added to its double and its triple, and the sum is means equals 714. Again, solving these should not be the issue, I hope. It's just practicing reading those problems and writing the equations through with them. It's just 6x divided by 6. Find the 3 numbers. Don't miss a point because you just don't finish the problem. If you found the first number, can you find the other 2 numbers to go with it? 2x and 3x. Right? You're just going to take double the number and triple the number. The great thing about an equation is you can check your answers, right? You could actually add those all up when you're done and make sure that you got those right numbers. So I think if we take double the number, we're going to get 238. And if we take triple 119, we get 357, and you can check, if you add those up, you get 714. Could you have got there by guess and check? Yes, but I think this is a lot faster way of doing it if you write an equation. Questions about that? There's a lot of different questions on your homework today. Some might require you to think a little bit about some things that you learned about. I think there might be one on your homework about a right triangle. And if they're talking about right triangle and the sides of a right triangle, what equation are you going to use with a right triangle? Pythagorean theorem, right? And so I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out here. Last year I might have yelled at a student who said they had no clue what the Pythagorean theorem was. If you have a right triangle, you should know that if you know anything about the sides, you know the relationship between those sides. And what is the relationship between the sides of a right triangle? If you square the sum of the 2 legs of the triangle, it will always be equal to the hypotenuse of the triangle. Pythagorean theorem. You've learned it at least since 8th grade, maybe before then. And then you use it a lot in geometry. It's going to be coming into play a lot in our class too. So today's the first day of doing that. The last thing I have is just something from your book. You don't have to write this down. But all this stuff that we've done in chapter 1 is all going to come back again. That's why in chapter 1 it seems like there's so much stuff, because they just kind of hit the basics. And then in each of those types of graphs, some maybe that we haven't even talked about yet, those are all going to come into play again. And this chapter is all about, or this section's all about modeling. And so there's a really nice graph in your book. I just took it straight out of the book here. That talks about these different equations, what they look like as an equation, what the graph could look like, and the different applications. And so when you always say, when am I ever going to use this? What's the point of learning this? There's a lot of different stuff here where these graphs come into play and where we're going to see. And they even talk about chapter 2, which we're about to start this week. We're going to talk about all those polynomial equations again, from quadratic all the way up to the 4th degree, and graphing all those lovely curvy graphs again. Chapter 3, we'll talk about logarithms again, and so we'll talk about ln. ln, when they talk about earthquakes, the Richter scale, that's where logarithms come into play. Same thing with sound, how sound is measured in decibels, that uses natural logarithms. And then here's a bunch more here. Exponential, we talked about that with population. Power, we'll talk about that in chapter 2. Logistic, we talked about that already with population models. And sine and cosine, we'll get there next semester. We'll start with chapter 4 next semester. And we'll talk a lot about all those trig functions and what we can do with them. But this stuff's not going away. Graphing is not going away. Graphing is a big part of precalculus. And I hope that we will start doing better on our homework, asking more questions on our homework, because I hope that homework quiz grades are going to improve a little bit, because right now, overall, they're not so great. That's all the notes I have today. Your homework, I want you to make sure you pay attention to this, and it is the way it's on your homework sheet. You're doing 3 through 36 multiples of 3, but on 33, you're only going to do parts A and B. There's a whole lot more to 33, so make sure you write that down, because otherwise you're going to get really frustrated because you're not going to know what to do. But I want to give you some time to work on this today, because there are a lot of different types of problems. I can't do an example of every type of problem, but on all these problems today, the first thing you should be doing is thinking about what equation could I write, or what relationship can I make between these, and that's how you deal with story problems. So you got a good amount of time to start on this. I want everyone working on it, and then let me know if you have questions on it. geometric shape. It's always a good idea to draw a picture.